Emergency responders of Reddit, what are some dumb things that have led to an emergency situation? I had a client once who was basically Ricky from Trailer Park Boys, loud, obnoxious, hilarious, and every second word was some maritime slang or a derivative of frick. He has been on daily eye drops for decades for dry eyes. Sure, okay, cool. I hear screaming down the hall and run in, and he's wedged against the wall in the bed just screaming, "I effed up, boys. I dunno what the effed is effing happening, but it's effed." Turns out he mistakenly put Jubileo, which is an antifungal ointment for toenails, in his eye, thinking it was his eye drops. The strangest part was the bottle has this miniature sponge at the end, so you soak the sponge then paint it on like a gel. He painted this antifungal ointment onto his eye, which immediately went red and angry, then proceeded to do the other one. So he's at the eye wash station and I'm talking to poison control, and they are pretty stunned because they have zero data on what happens to a human eyeball when it's painted in antifungal. I can hear the staff at the other end kind of snickering under her breath, and she asks, "Can you compare and contrast the eyes?" Well, he put it in both eyes. The line goes silent because I can tell she is howling. Guy was totally fine, but it was a standout for sure. Kid driving his new truck down a residential street, wet from a recent rain, lost control and hit a parked car, overcorrected and rolled it once back onto its wheels up onto a lawn. He told the fire chief he had gunned it to impress his girlfriend, and the chief just looked at him and asked, "So, was she impressed?" Got called to a shooting. A guy says he received a text message from an anonymous number saying his brother has been shot. He checks all the hospitals with no luck. He goes to his brother's apartment but gets no response at his door, but sees his car and can hear the TV on. We get there, attempt to get an answer at the door. Eventually we kick the door in to make sure he wasn't dying in his apartment. We boot the door, announce police, and find him asleep in his bed. The guy tells us that he got a new phone number and decided to mess with his brother by texting him he had been shot. He then fell asleep and forgot about the text and was woken up by us. So many wasted resources on his idiotic prank. Woman ran out of gas. Filled up a 2-liter Fanta bottle at the gas station and walked back to her car. Tried to dump it in the tank but kept spilling. Decided to illuminate the situation with her cigarette lighter. Luckily she was not seriously injured. Guy got into an argument with his child's mother. He tried to hold onto the car when she drove away and was drug about 2 blocks. His feet were all messed up, so he decided to clean them off with a jug of Arbor Mist. These 2 incidents happened within 3 blocks of each other. Responded to a call of 2 minors being kidnapped and their parents being beaten in front of them and then taken someplace else. One was around 3 years and the other one was 6. They were held captive in an apartment out of hundreds of residential apartments, which not easy to locate. Upon reaching there we found out that the boy 6 was just playing with us to see if we would actually respond. Their parents were so embarrassed by all of that and vowed to not give them mobile until they are adults. Got called to a priority job. The caller was kayaking in a lake and said that there was an unresponsive male in the water. So off we went, lights and sirens. We requested paramedics and fire to attend as well for the rescue operation. There were about 6 emergency vehicles attending, including a rescue boat. We got there within minutes and met the caller, who showed us where the guy was. He was just swimming, minding his own business. The caller said he was unresponsive, but really he was just ignoring her. Had a chat with the guy, he seemed alright, said he swims here every day and likes the quiet. No issues. Would have been nice if the caller told the operator that he was still conscious and swimming rather than unresponsive. Paramedic here. We responded to this 54-year-old having chest pain. Man was having a heart attack. Dude didn't want to go to the hospital because it's too early in the day. That's it. We tried to convince him to go. Got the ER doc to talk to him and he wouldn't budge. He signed a refusal. Later that same night, his family found him dead in the living room. We got to him and started CPR, meds, everything. Dude didn't make it. When we advise you to go to the hospital, go. While in high school, an ex-student came to visit and we asked him what he does for a living. He said he's an ER neurosurgeon. We asked him for stories, of course, and he said he was brought a man who was hit with a nail gun on the forehead and still alive, somehow. He told us he had to call his older colleagues who were off shift to come to assist, because based on what he learned in med school, the dude should be dead. His older colleague told him jokingly that if the patient dies, it's not on the ex-student because nobody has ever seen something like this. They managed to pull the nail out and the patient made full recovery. Apparently, the nail went perfectly between his lobes, causing little damage. The patient said he'll change his ways and stop doing dumb stuff, only to be brought in a few weeks later due to a motorcycle accident where he fell and hit the sidewalk. He had no helmet. The ER surgeon said he could only watch him slowly die from the concussion and bleeding that followed. He said it was shocking and traumatizing, but he eventually made peace with it. He said that he could save people from many injuries, but in the end, he can't save them from themselves. Page to a fire at a campground in the early morning. Fire department is hosing down a big Class A motor home. The occupants are my patients. Story goes as follows: they were of retirement age and had just bought the motorhome a week prior. They were on their first trip. They had awoken to the gas alarm going off and smelled gas. The husband proceeded to search for the source of the leak. Naturally, he's looking through cabinets and opening compartments. Unbelievably, he decided to use his cigarette lighter to help him see. Yup, smelled gas and lit his lighter. Obviously, the whole thing goes boom right in his face. They managed to escape the camper, which burned to a total loss. I gave them an assessment and they actually had only minor injuries, mostly to pride I think. But I still remember his beard. It was so brittle after having been cooked a bit, it was breaking off in little bits that I had to sweep out of the ambulance later. Good times. Don't use your lighter to find a gas leak, kids. Not a first responder, but I saw someone do something stupid that led to the hospital. I used to sell appliances. We would have a lot of scrap units come back from customers' homes after they bought something new. Dryers sometimes would have changed rattling around in the bottom. One of our guys once found a $50 in a dryer just by a stroke of luck. Upon hearing this story, one of our newer delivery guys decided to take apart a dryer to see if there was anything in it. He didn't know how to take it apart and started prying the top off with a flathead screwdriver. The screwdriver slipped and got him in the eye. He got off pretty easy with just a scratched cornea and an eye patch. After he left for the hospital, I took the access panel off of the front and found 75 cents. He tried to file a workman's comp claim, but it was rejected because he wasn't performing one of his normal job functions and he was being an idiot. Double leg amputee drove his lawnmower a mile down into the woods, had the battery die, and got stuck. It was toned as double leg amputee on a mower, so everyone thought we had catastrophic trauma. Policy also dictated a helicopter being dispatched. We all get to the scene to find out he just can't get back to civilization. They carted him out on a UTV. It's me. I'm the idiot. He proclaims before getting into his adapted pickup, nearly backing into our truck, and driving off into the night. We recently had a homeless man set a large trash fire in a field so someone would see it and we would respond and put it out and he could talk to us. His whole reason for wanting to talk to us was because he smelled something dead. He lived in a giant scrapyard full of concrete and rebar where any animal could have crawled in and died. Not an emergency responder, but I worked customer service for years and we had emergency responders come to help us with this case, so I'll tell the story for them, lol. Years ago, behind the counter at McDonald's, they used to have these glass see-through kettles for the tea. We had an enraged drunken customer storm behind the counter, grabbing things and throwing them all over the place. He grabbed the boiling hot kettle and smashed it against his head, panicked as he realized, slipped over in the mess he'd made on the floor and ended up sitting down on top of the largely intact glass bottom of the kettle and it cupped nicely around his bottom, impaling several times into his. Well, you get the idea. Needless to say, first aid hadn't prepared any of us for this type of thing and we basically just stared at him with our eyes and mouths wide open until the ambulance got there. Back when I was lifeguarding, I had a family bring a big circular pool raft to the beach. As soon as I saw it, I ran over and told them in no uncertain terms that it was unfit for the ocean and especially the conditions we had that day, 3 to 4 feet waves with stiff offshore winds. The mom barely even acknowledged me, just said they know what they're doing and will take it outside my zone, so I'm not allowed to whistle at them. Which is not how that works, but I figured it was easier to watch them closely than deal with calling the cops. I regretted that decision once I had to paddle a few hundred feet out to manually tow a couple of screaming teenagers into shore on the raft. Arguably something I could have called the Coast Guard in for, but the shit-eating grin I got to have while filling out the incident report with the mother made it well worth it. Long story short, don't take inflatables in the ocean, especially when the wind is offshore. You're sitting on a sail. Had a guy call because he had the cure to COVID and needed a ride to the local education hospital so he could share it. Dude was so high on meth. He ended up having 4 or 5 binders worth of scientific-looking notes. God only knows what was actually in them. Eating sunflower seeds without spitting out the shells. The boy ate an entire package. Cub XR showed lots of pointy teardrops in the rectum. You know that hurt on the way out. The amount of men that need emergency care to have things removed from their rectums that got there because they fell on them. Naked. Accidentally.